Like, I want to know what to expect. And I just very often wouldn't get that kind of respect, you know?
I was fly by the seat of my pants most of the time, just creative. I've seen other people who are much more well-organized with flexibility, and then I've seen people who are just completely rigid, you know, where there is no flexibility. I've known polygamists who wouldn't even stay with his wife.
Robyn and the Finances, classic. So I'm rewatching season 15, episode 4, and I'm dying over this moment. They're all sitting around discussing Leon's wedding, and there's Robyn just chilling in the background like she has no stake in the conversation. But as soon as that paper with the pricing comes out, she jumps up like a hawk, trailing the paper around the table, desperate for a peek at the price. And of course, the second she gets a glance, she's immediately looking to Kody for his reaction. Hilarious. It's like she has a need to know the family finances. Never mind that she's not exactly contributing to the pot. I had to share this because, honestly, I have no one else to vent to, but watching her chase that paper was too much. Then there's the wedding venue drama with Aspen. Sobin tried to talk them out of the place Aspen loved, throwing out some nonsense about how lots of girls still need weddings. Aka, my girls' weddings come first, and everyone else can make do. I couldn't believe her audacity. Like, lady, your kids are years away from marrying, and you're already staking your claim on the family money? Girl, take a seat. This isn't your circus yet. And then, let's not forget when they were trying to buy that house in Flagstaff. Sobin had a meltdown over how Kody was tied up in so many home loans. She goes off like, all the other wives need to get their own loans without you on them. We're not doing this again. Excuse me? You're acting like he was your first husband or something. Why do you get to call the shots on whose loans he's involved in? But hey, I guess it all worked out for Christine in the end. With Kody off her house, she got a pretty sweet clean break. I just can't with her. Every time she tries to take charge of the finances, it's a whole new level of WTF. We've got so much to dive into today, so let's not waste any time. Let's jump straight into it. Hey everyone, what's up? It's Elena here, and welcome back to my channel Reality Nexus X. Was Robyn the white trash of the polygamy world? Well, I mean, as the saying goes, takes one to know one. Or, as my AA sponsor always put it, you can spot it because you've got it. So yeah, I'm definitely allowed to call it out. I'm white trash adjacent, after all, redneck, very southern. If Christine's the polygamist royalty, does that mean Robyn's the white trash or just the commoner? She sure seems like she came from a rougher background, poorer, less educated, and a little clueless about how polygamy works. And let's not forget her spending habits. The way she blows money on useless junk. Classic. She's always stumbling over her words and using phrases like really, really stupid, which, let's be honest, sounds, well, really, really stupid. Now, what about Meri and Janelle? Do they fit into one of those categories, or are they somewhere in between? Thoughts? I've said it before and I'll say it again. Robyn's basically white trash with money. Oh, totally. The way she spends on doll clothes and random stuff, it's straight up reminiscent of those women in trailer parks who have entire walls of dolls that are covered in nicotine stains. And don't even get me started on those fairy journals. Talk about trailer park chick. Honestly, I think Robyn's mom just started sleeping with her friend's husband, and they somehow decided to call it polygamy. Let's be real, Robyn's been jealous of Christine's place in the AVB community from the start. She sized up Christine immediately, which is probably why she always has an answer for every burning question. As for Christine being polygamy royalty, I think that's more about her family's connections to church leaders than any sort of fancy socioeconomic status. Her upbringing probably wasn't much better than Robyn's. But honestly, the Browns, they're all pretty trashy by my standards. And I'm not even talking about their background or education. I'm talking about defrauding taxpayers and neglecting their kids. That's where the real trashiness lies. Did Kody spend the night with Truly when she was sick? Not that I know of. Pretty sure it was Aspen pulling the all-nighter with her, since Aspen said Truly kept her awake all night. Meanwhile, Kody was probably at Robyn's, living his best life. Father of the year, right? You'd think with all the moms gone, he'd be hosting a sleepover for the under 10 crowd. But no, since Truly was actually sick, you'd think he'd be the one stepping up. I mean, what if something happened to her? The guilt would have been all over Aspen and my Kelty. Not exactly fair, is it? Okay, in Kody's defense, Dayton was like 13 at the time, so technically there was a lack of adult supervision. Still, that doesn't mean Kody couldn't have just packed up his kids and gone to Christine's to care for Truly. Or why didn't he have Leon stay with Robyn? Honestly, the Browns don't exactly excel at thinking on their feet. And let's talk about why they left the college kids to handle the younger ones instead of asking Annie or one of the Sullivan girls to help out. I can't even tell Mindy and Terralice apart, but that's beside the point. Couldn't the grandmas have come in for a weekend to pitch in? Really? It's pretty clear Kody left the bulk of the responsibility on Aspen and my Kelty while Truly was sick. And honestly, spending most of his nights at Robyn's with her kids doesn't make sense. He could have just combined the younger kids into one home and stayed there to help out. But I'll admit, he was juggling a lot with the wives away, so I try to give him a tiny bit of grace. Still, when the wives got back, Christine was left with her own 6 kids, and once again, the bulk of the responsibility fell to Aspen and my Kelty. You'd think Kody would at least help out a little more, but nope. And shocker, Kody admits it. He said he had to be at Robyn's because her kids were younger and needed him more. Forget about Saul though, Truly's still the youngest and sick. Maybe he should have sent one of the teens over to Robyn's so he could be with his sick toddler. Axel's birth, just rewatched it, and my blood is boiling all over again. Look, I'm not the biggest fan of Meri, but I'll give credit where credit's due. She was the only one not shoving herself into the room when it clearly wasn't her moment. Everyone else was practically knocking down the door, and then, surprise, surprise, it was too late for anyone to actually step back. I honestly feel so bad for Madison in all of this. But seriously, did anyone ever address how she felt about it afterwards? Meri was over there sulking about being excluded, but let's be real, none of them were supposed to be there. Not a single one of them. And then there's Christine. Oh my God, the nerve. I'm not leaving until someone tells me to. Like really? Madison is literally in the middle of childbirth, trying to survive the pain, and Christine is out here demanding someone kick her out. When exactly was Madison supposed to squeeze in the time to say, okay, time to clear the room? It's driving me insane. The whole thing was just a mess. Honestly, I felt bad for Maddie watching it too. Some of Caleb's comments were beyond cringy. I can't even imagine having to go through that on camera. And to think Maddie didn't have much choice in her family dynamic with all the multiple mothers. When I had my first baby, I just wanted to make everyone happy by having everyone in the room. My parents, his parents, the works. And then, by the end of it, I kicked everyone out because I just couldn't take it anymore. But Christine's post-birth rant about Meri bringing too much baggage into the room. That was just nasty. Like really, it was all about Meri and her supposed issues instead of focusing on what was actually happening. Maddie giving birth in a room full of people who were probably giving her more stress than support. Now, I do get the sense that by the time Maddie was in the thick of it, she probably didn't care who was there. But the fact that Meri wasn't included still stings. Not Maddie's fault, though she was in pain, exhausted, and just trying to survive the moment. But then Robyn, Meri's supposed closest sister-wife, couldn't even send a text to check in or give an update. That's just cold. That's the part that made me feel bad for Meri. Of course, it's possible Maddie did care, but just couldn't speak up. I don't know. Maybe she was too overwhelmed. And honestly, I don't think Maddie ever talked about that directly, whether on the show or her podcast. Would be interesting to hear her side, though. So here's the scoop on the wedding situation, since it's come up a lot lately. Janelle and Kody recently clarified the whole thing, so let's break it down. Weddings, oh joy, the one day a month when everyone gets married at the same time. Yep, you read that right. Every wedding gets lumped into the same day for temple marriages. That's why Janelle and Kody's wedding fell on Meri's birthday. Yep, what a coincidence, right? But don't worry, no ill intent here. Janelle and Kody actually petitioned for a special date, just for them. They were graciously granted this request, so it wouldn't cause any unnecessary drama with Meri. So no, this wasn't some kind of malicious plot to steal Meri's spotlight. That would be an entirely different kind of reality TV show. Now, let's talk about Janelle's brief marriage to Meri's brother, which always seems to come up in tandem with the wedding date drama. Janelle and Meri's brother were together for 6 months, then separated. And no, that wasn't 3 minutes before Janelle decided to marry Kody. This was 3 years before she walked down the aisle with him. On the Notes to Self podcast, they mentioned that it's actually pretty common in their community to marry into the same family post-divorce, which honestly might sound a bit strange to outsiders, but it's just business as usual for them. As for why Meri doesn't ever talk about Janelle being married to her brother, well, here's a thought. Could it be that Meri just doesn't want to discuss it? It's never been really addressed directly, but what if Janelle is just respecting her by keeping things quiet? I mean, it was only 6 months. That's barely a relationship by anyone's standards, let alone something worth airing out. Maybe, just maybe, it's not Janelle trying to sweep it under the rug. It's Meri who doesn't want it brought up, especially with all the family drama and, some possible personal issues. Not to be overly speculative, but could it be that keeping this quiet is more about protecting Meri than avoiding a conversation about an ex-husband? And on a personal note, people end marriages for all kinds of reasons. Sure, some of them are the same old tired excuses, but sometimes there's a bit more to it. For example, when I divorced my first husband, everything seemed fine. We got along like peanut butter and jelly, except for the whole sexual issue he kept secret until after the wedding. Not exactly the get-along part of a relationship. It wasn't illegal, but it sure made things, well, impossible, so I left. There are only a few people who know the real reason, and I'm not going around telling everyone in my life. Some things you just don't casually discuss, even when people keep asking, so why did you divorce? Let's maybe ease up on the assumptions, folks, mine included. There's a lot we don't know here, and sometimes silence can be a sign of respect, not secrecy. It's honestly baffling to me how Kody gets off scot-free in all of this. Like, why is he always given a pass? Sure, Robyn's the one everyone loves to point the finger at, because, of course, it's easier to blame the woman, right? But let's not pretend Kody didn't play a massive role in completely destroying his family. I mean, we're acting like Robyn was some kind of magical villain who single-handedly took down the entire operation. Really? That's the narrative we're going with? It's almost too convenient. Let's take a moment to think. What was the common thread in all the failed marriages? Oh yeah, it was Kody. He didn't bother working on any of those relationships. He pitted the women against each other. He couldn't even bother to show up for his own kids from the original marriages. Kody controlled the finances. Robyn didn't have access to the money unless Kody gave it to her. And let's not forget his choice to spend the majority of his time at Robyn's house. But somehow, it's always Robyn's fault that everything fell apart. How did she magically orchestrate this entire thing? Sure, people seem to acknowledge Kody isn't innocent in all of this. But let's be real, he's the one who started the chain reaction. Robyn and Kody? They both went down in flames together. But it's hard to ignore that Kody's the one holding the match. Now, as much as people say Kody ruined everything, Robyn's role is still undeniable. But let's be clear, the reason people focus so much on Robyn isn't just because she's involved. It's because she tries to hide behind this damsel in distress persona. She says the right things to pull the heartstrings, but then turns around and does the exact opposite. It's classic manipulation, and let's be honest, that's a much more insidious form of control. She lies, sets double standards, and plays the victim. When someone acts like that, you have no idea just how far they'll go to get what they want. That's what makes her so dangerous. Longtime viewers, did you honestly think the family was just so happy and functional? Because I was just thinking about the pilot, and here's the thing. None of the teens, except for Leon, of course, wanted to live polygamy. Shouldn't that have been a huge red flag? I mean, if the family structure was actually working, wouldn't the older kids have, I don't know, embraced the lifestyle too? But no, they didn't. And let's talk about how functional they seemed. Spoiler alert, not very. In the first season, both Christine and Meri are sobbing over Robyn joining the family, and clearly airing their frustration with how Kody was handling the whole courtship thing. And Janelle? She was basically a ghost, barely around. None of the wives were thriving. They were just going through the motions, like they had no choice but to accept their fate and try to make it work. Now, here's the kicker. Logan, the oldest son, waking up early every single day to make breakfast and get his siblings ready for school, while Kody was literally in the house. If that isn't a glaring red flag, I don't know what is. Kody couldn't even be bothered to do basic dad duties. He was obviously checked out of his kids' leaves, only showing up when it was absolutely necessary. Honestly, Season 1 was a goldmine for seeing how things were really working behind the scenes. They were putting on a good show, but the cracks were already there, just waiting to get bigger. The kids not wanting to live the polygamous life? Yeah, that was a major flag. But I didn't really start to notice just how bad things were until that therapy episode with all 5 parents. On my recent rewatch, it was glaringly obvious from episode 1. But when I first watched, I thought they were just navigating a complicated situation. They did a pretty good job of filming the happy family vibe and making it look like everything was fine. Honestly, I even admired them for it. But not anymore. When Robyn claimed she's been riding 4-wheelers for however long, or whatever she said, it was pretty obvious she's no expert. I mean, the way she fumbled around on that 4-wheeler? Yeah, definitely not the seasoned rider she wants everyone to believe. And when Kody came driving toward her, she nearly had a heart attack. That's how I know she's clueless about handling that thing on a little hill. Honestly, it's like she's just full of stories and manipulation. I'd love to sit down with her ex-husband sometime. Now he'd really set the record straight for all of us. And honestly, if something were to happen to Robyn, no ill will, of course, I'd be curious to see who Kody tries to cozy up to next. My guess? He'd go running back to Meri, but with how well Janelle's doing, he might try his luck with her instead. It's like everything with her, she inserts herself into situations, pretending to have a life full of experiences she's never actually had. Classic Robyn. The infamous couch discussion. How could anyone forget it? Kody, in all his glory, repeatedly hollers, "I said we need to have a talk." Like it's some groundbreaking declaration of leadership. Yet somehow, despite all this talk of needing a conversation, he just expects Janelle and the boys to do the heavy lifting. He blames them for not making it happen, as if he isn't the one who could have, I don't know, initiated the conversation himself. Maybe even asked the boys to meet up, but no, instead, the great patriarch sits back and fumes as things fall apart, all while throwing a tantrum worthy of a 5-year-old. The thing is, Kody has been riding the wave of self-perceived desirability for decades, convinced that everyone should be scrambling for his attention, like he's the ultimate prize. The fact that his family isn't just falling over themselves to win his approval, absolutely baffling to him. And don't even get him started on how he sees his relationship with the kids. If he likes their mom, suddenly he's involved if she guides him through it. But if she doesn't hold his hand and wrangle the kids into submission, suddenly she's the villain. So when Janelle didn't pressure the boys to obey Kody or boot them out of the picture, she became the enemy. It's almost impressive how quickly he can twist things to make himself the victim. Classic Kody. Okay, so how does everyone feel about polygamy? After rewatching Sister Wives for, like, the 19th time, I'm curious about people's thoughts on it now. Honestly, when I first started watching, I thought, it's really none of our business what other people choose to do. I didn't think polygamy was inherently wrong, just different. Most people, I figured, don't go into it with bad intentions. But after seeing 19 seasons of The Browns, it's clear to me now, polygamy can have some serious long-term consequences, especially for the kids involved. If a woman wants to marry a man with multiple wives, that's her choice, but the long-term impact on the children is undeniable. Watching how Kody changed over time, especially after marrying Robyn, is kind of wild. It was almost like that's when his relationship with his kids started to fall apart. Seeing that most of his children don't even speak to him anymore, what happened there? At what point do we look at a guy who's fathered 18 kids, yet barely speaks to more than half of them, and think, yeah, that's a great environment for raising kids? I used to think the Browns were just living their lives and not hurting anyone, but now, years later, I can see how damaging this lifestyle is to the emotional and mental well-being of the kids. And it's not just the Browns. The psychological toll polygamy takes on people is real, and I can't believe I didn't see it sooner. I know my views on this are probably unpopular, but let me just say, the Browns and the FLDs are not the only examples of polygamy, they're just the most famous. And let me be clear, religion should never be a justification for any type of relationship. If polygamy is something you choose, there needs to be some kind of legal framework to protect everyone involved. A contract, like a legit contract. That way, it can help prevent the abuses we often associate with polygamy, welfare fraud, underage marriages, neglect, all that. If people weren't constantly hiding in fear of being arrested for their lifestyle, they might have a better chance of avoiding these issues. Just because I personally wouldn't choose that lifestyle doesn't mean I think it should be a crime for other adults who do. But there should definitely be more protection for the entire family and not just a free-for-all. Honestly, when you think about the bigger picture, it just doesn't make sense. If a man has 4 wives, that leaves 3 men with no wives, and 4 sister wives who are probably frustrated that they only get 25% of his time. So why wouldn't some of the wives just leave and find a man who can give them more attention? And that's exactly what we see happening on the show. It's just a messy situation all around. Robyn's job before joining the Browns is a bit of a mystery, but she has given us a few details. According to her, after her divorce, she was a single working mom, scraping by with every penny from her job just to put food in their bellies and keep the electricity on. It was a struggle, enough to stay afloat, but not enough to make a dent in her debt. However, she hasn't specifically said what kind of job she had. One Reddit thread suggests she worked at some sort of long-term care or retirement facility, but not in a medical capacity. It's unclear exactly what her role was, but it sounds like she had a job that provided some stability, even if it wasn't glamorous. As for where she was living at the time, it seems like she stayed in or around St. George, Utah, where her mom and Uncle Daddy Paul lived. There's also a belief that she may have lived in a property they owned, which makes sense since St. George is about 3 to 4 hours south of Lee, where she eventually moved. So it's safe to say that was her base before everything shifted to the Browns' world. Robyn? Well, getting ready must be quite the ordeal. Between perfecting those banana curls, layering on the heavy makeup, and sifting through her treasure trove of costume jewelry and all that purple nonsense, I'm guessing she's in there for at least an hour, maybe more. She's not exactly rushing for anyone, least of all Kody, who's busy doing his manly chores around the house while the kids sit there, probably wondering when they'll ever leave the bathroom. And those crybros? Sturdy as can be. Plus, let's not forget the fake lashes, because why not? The foundation's probably settled nicely into every line and crevice. But who's counting, right? It's all about the dramatic effect. As for her wardrobe choices, art and jewelry all over the place. But somehow she manages to look like she bought her outfits at Walmart in the polyester grandma section. But hey, priorities, right? I'm pretty sure it's all for the cameras though. When she's in full casual mode, jeans, hoodie, ponytail, she actually looks like a real, normal mom. Kind of refreshing, really. I saw it when they were painting tables and thought, who's that? Why doesn't she just roll with that look on TV? Seems way easier. Let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in the next video. Take care and much love to you all.